Good morning and welcome back to the Global Energy Outlook Forum 2026. We've heard a lot of insights and forecast predictions for Asia out there, for the sort of far east, if you like, from a Middle East perspective, at least in terms of deep into Southeast Asia, China, Singapore, etc. But now we're in the big mama, if you like, India, the biggest, fastest growing economy in the world. And we're absolutely delighted to have India's leading energy expert, Narendra Taneja, with us here today. Narendra, good morning.
Good morning to you, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure. It's we wouldn't have a conversation about the future of 2026 and what it looks like without having one of India's key voices. And sort of from that starting point, can we just at least establish at the beginning our conversation that the growth prospects for India in 2026 will continue to be substantial? What do you expect the GDP growth for India in 2026 to be?
Well, if you look at the parameters, all the key parameters, for instance, of the last 6-7 months, and the key parameters, the way we are looking at in India, let's say of the coming 6, 7, 8 months, Indian economy seems to be in very, very good shape. Of course, there are a few challenges here and there, and some of these challenges are actually originating from Washington, D.C., a building there called Washington White House. But even if you factor that in, the landscape overall looks pretty strong and very optimistic. And
what's pretty strong, Sam? What's a number on pretty strong? Is that 8 or 9%, or is it 5, 6?
Well, somewhere in between. When I say strong, I mean if you look at one quarter just of the the fiscal year, the current fiscal year, we were almost like 8.3% growth rate of GDP of that particular quarter. But if you look at the average comes to about 7.3 to 7.4 for this.
And of course, the Indian fiscal year ends mid-calendar year. Is that correct?
Indian fiscal year 1st of April to the end of March.
Okay.
And therefore, we are already past 3 quarters and we are in the 4th quarter right now. And in the 4th quarter and beyond also, we are looking at something like GDP growth rate in the region of 7.2 to 7.6, depending, which organization you are using for the estimates. But
so despite all the noise, despite all of, as you mentioned there, the sort of Trump tantrums with India, the tariffs, the fairly somewhat negative sort of trade framework of the last 6 months hasn't knocked India off of its 7+ growth trajectory, still maintaining its position as the fastest growing large economy in the world.
But if you look at the data, I mean, the economy, despite the challenges that we have faced, is doing very well. In terms of sentiments, especially when it comes to, small and medium-sized industry, somewhere there are you can see the lines of worry, but those are still at the level of sentiment that have not yet reflected or manifested anyway in data. But my own sense is that, when you look at the India's economy's fundamentals are very strong. Domestic demand is very strong. The monsoon has been very good. And the government is responding to the kind of challenges being thrown at India from the Washington, D.C., almost on a real-time basis. So therefore, we remain
quite
optimistic.
What's in the special sauce that have been able to resist such a significant sort of engagement from the world's largest economy, the U.S., long-standing partner and ally of India, facing some challenges on the trade front in particular? What is in the India picture at the moment that is allowing it to at least resist in terms of its economic performance?
Well, mainly because we have gone back for deeper engagement with the countries we are very familiar with, including China. We might have some political issues with them, issues on the border with them, but at the same time, we expanded our overall economic umbrella relationship with China, for instance. The same goes for the Middle East, and also our exporters government is facilitating, helping them to find new markets, let's say in Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and in Europe. So, and the government is very, very active on these issues, and we can already see the response in terms of the orders which are coming in. But that said, at the same time, I'm not suggesting in even remotely that the challenges are not there. Challenges are there because our exporters, our market have been so used to American market, especially for diamond and jewelry and pharmaceuticals, IT services, and so on, petroleum products, and so forth. So the challenges are still there. But so far, when you look at the data, export data and overall trade data, you don't see the big any manifestation in any big way. Anxiety, yes. Worries, yes. But so far, the focus is more to find new markets, and the government is going full hawk
As a major
to support
energy
India's
importer,
exporters, India's industry.
slight delay on the line,
Yeah.
I think. As a major energy importer, we saw the oil price come down in 2025 to average about $65 a barrel. What's your own expectation for 2026? Clearly, the lower price is quite beneficial, probably helping maintain the economic growth trajectory you mentioned. What's your forecast for 2026?
But my own reading and sense is that in 2026, especially when it comes to the first 6 months, crude oil prices are going to be in the region of $60 per barrel of Brent, because Indian economy and we go by the Brent benchmark. So my own sense is about the $60 on average. Sometime price may drop to $55 per barrel and may go up to $65, $67 per barrel. But I think given the kind of geopolitical landscape, demand supply landscape, my sense is that if we go by $60 per barrel average, I think that we are on the very, very safe ground. Though Indian economy is actually ready even for $70 per barrel, the way our budget is, for instance, designed. But I think $60 per barrel, that's probably what we are looking at over the coming 6 to 7 months.
We saw during the course of the last year, and hence some of the face-off with the United States regarding the importation of Russian oil that has been sanctioned by the G7. India was the biggest buyer with China, some 2 million barrels a day of heavily discounted oil. Now all oil is practically discounted at the near the price cap as such, but what's your outlook for India to continue to buy that quantity? India typically imports about 5 million barrels a day of crude oil, nearly half of that last year going from Russia. What would your expectations be for 2026?
Well, you see, it all depends on how trade negotiations go with the United States. We have done the maximum possible. We are now importing much more crude oil from the United States than ever before. The last 6 months, in fact, the volumes has gone up by 69%. We have signed a deal to import LPG also from the United States. So we are trying our level best in order to make sure that trade negotiations leads to the kind of healthy and successful conclusion. And negotiations are more or less over. And now actually the file is at the White House with President Trump. So let's see how he's going to react. Now the question is, at the same time, when it comes to India's strategic autonomy, so our relations with Russia are independent of our relations with the United States, or for that matter, any other country. And there are going to be no compromises. But if the US wants us to import more from US, especially when it comes to fossil fuel, India is very willing to do that. In fact, very proactively, we are working in that direction. There are no sentiments or emotions involved in our oil relations with Russia. It's pure economics. And President Trump got to understand, his advisor got to understand that.
If it's pure economics, Russian oil is pretty heavily discounted these days. It's hard to imagine Indian refiners turning it away at what might be $40 to $50 a barrel.
Well, you see, the point is that you have to strike the right balance. The US is a very important country for us at the same time. Our economic relations is very deep, strategic relationship is very deep. Our defense relationship between India and the US is growing very fast, rapidly. So when it comes to our worldview, India, United States, more or less the same worldview when it comes to Indo-Pacific. So there are so many things that we have to look after. We can't just single out only oil.
Well,
so we are trying our level best to have healthy relations with the United States, but without compromising our autonomy, strategic autonomy, in terms of oil with Russia. That will continue. We'll continue to import from Russia.
I mean, from the point of view of numbers, would that be 1 million barrels a day, half of what you did last year? Would it be the same as last year?
Well, you see, as I said, that our economy can easily absorb even $70 per barrel. So, which means that
we're
if we have
talking
to
about
bring
$40
down,
to $50. You're not going to turn that away.
No. The question, well, nobody really knows in terms of kind of discounts.
Well,
Some
if
people say
Brent is
discount.
60, then I mean the Chinese analysis is indicating that Russian crude into China is going in at below 40.
Well, China is brother of Russia. We are friends. There is a difference.
There's a cousin. But let's put it this way. I mean, it's clear that U.S. is looking for, they're hitting India with the Russian oil stick, but really they want to break open the Indian economy. They want to seriously see economic reforms in India so that the market opens up for American business. What can India do on that front to sort of make America happy again with regards access to the Indian market, whether it be agriculture or otherwise?
Well, you see, India tries level best to, have good relations with the United States and in particular with President Trump. We have known him very well. He has been to India. Our Prime Minister has been his guest, a couple of times in the past. Now, the question is that when it comes to, there are certain areas which are extremely sensitive, politically very sensitive, such as dairy, such as, agriculture. I think it's very difficult to kind of open up that area for American exporters, because if we do that, there are going to be political consequences and political cost, which no government in power in New Delhi can afford. So I think this is what the US got to understand. This has been very powerfully effective.
So what can you give them? What do you expect to be able to give American business in 2026 that you didn't give them last year that will afford them satisfaction?
Well, Tesla wants to come to India. They want to set up a factory. But now Tesla is ready, but somebody seems to be kind of coming in the way. We don't know. So now Tesla is ready. There are so many other American companies are ready to come here. IT company want to set up and expand their campuses in India. There's so many others. They want
do you
to
have
do
the
that.
power
so
supply,
India,
the available power supply for that heavy industry and data farms and so on?
India is the third largest producer of electricity. As we talk, actually, we are electricity surplus. If there is one country which is an electricity surplus, that's India.
Speaking of the ability to turn away from the new engagement with Russian oil imports, can India maintain energy affordability, which is so critical? I mean, you speak about agriculture and dairy being a major political requirement in India, very sensitive. Energy affordability is in the same box as dairy, right? Can Indian government maintain energy affordability while reducing exposure to cheap sanctioned oil supply?
Well, you see, the thing is the majority of oil sector companies, for the sake of discussions, are actually owned by the government. Majority, almost like 65%. And as you know, the petroleum products are heavily taxed. And almost when you buy a liter of gasoline in Delhi, you pay almost 50% of money that you pay goes to the government, whether the federal government or the state government. So actually, it plays a very, very important role in the overall economy of the federal government as well as the state government. And at the same time, India government offers subsidy to those who can't afford to pay to make it affordable. So it's affordable for those who are vulnerable, but it's not that affordable for those who can pay. So it's a kind of striking the right balance, and it works politically and economically reasonably well. For people like me, we're not complaining. At the same time, those who get subsidy, they are quite happy with it. So I think that it's just kind of very well absorbed both by the political thinking or by ordinary people's thinking, at the same time by the economy.
Call it what you want. 100% tariff sounds like a sanction to me. I mean, it's a punishment ultimately for not behaving in a way that the US government wants. What is the impact that could have as it goes on longer and longer? You said the trade deal is on his desk. He's not signing off on it, obviously. What's the risk in 2026? Could we drop out of 7% growth? Could there be consequences here? Or is the Indian economy that resilient that it could ride it out through the coming year?
Well, Indian economy is quite resilient. And if we need to kind of open up the economy further for certain countries or certain blocks, certain investors, we might do that. And at the same time, if we need to carry out further and deeper reforms in certain other sectors within the country, including agriculture, that might be put on the table. But the question is that, India's economy is very resilient. And we have great relations with countries like Russia, China, Japan, European Union, Middle Eastern countries, Africa, Latin America. It's only one country. And is
well, it happens to be the biggest bully and the biggest economy on the block. Is this an opportunity in a way for India not to I was having a conversation also about Turkey, is that, in this crisis, this is an opportunity to implement reforms that otherwise might be very difficult. Like Prime Minister Modi can turn to the Indian people and say, listen, I need to open up yogurt because the American guy has given me a big hit on the head, and we all understand we need the Americans. So bite on this unpleasant reform, that it could be a gift to the Indian government to make the sort of reform changes that clearly Modi has always been drawn to over the last 10 years in power.
Well, you see, whatever reforms we need, those are going to be dictated by the people of the country and the demand of the people of, on the part of India. As far as if, for instance, we are a very proud country, President Trump got to understand it. If we can't go to the people with this message, look, we got to open up this sector, agriculture sector, dairy sector, because President Trump is unhappy. We have to make him happy. He's not going to sell politically in India. And moreover, we are a very proud country. And it's not the first time we have faced such a situation. It's not the first time. We have faced similar situation in the past. It's a question of we have realized one thing. And that's the people of India has been conveyed, and the people of India are responding very positive. We are looking at the whole thing as an opportunity. It's an opportunity, was President Trump. It's a wake-up call. President Trump is telling us, you should be self-reliant in energy. You should be energy independent. You should be kind of, technology independent. You should be capital in. That's the message he's telling us, and we are buying it and thanking him all the way. So that's absolutely no worries, no anxiety or anything. But at the same time, America is important. President Trump is not the United States. We are looking at America. We are looking at American economy. We are looking at American corporation, American institution. President Trump may be America for some people. For us, President Trump is there for another 3.5 years or 4 years there. But people of America are more important. We have a great relation with the people and the businesses of the United States of America.
Well, tell me.
And that's what matters.
How big of a change, as we sit here at the beginning of 2026 and the events in Venezuela last weekend, where the American government, Trump administration, sent military forces in to remove the sitting president, kept the government in, kept the sort of Chavez party and regime in power, but removed the president. How big a change is that as one looks out to 2026?
Well, it's a big change. It's a major change. I mean, basically what President Trump has done now, he has ushered in the whole world into geopolitical Wild West. That's what we are into now. So being a big country, large economy, we got to be prepared for it. It's the Wild West, geopolitical Wild West. It's going to be very difficult for every single country on the planet to navigate it. China, be Russia, be European Union, be Canada, be Denmark, and other Latin American country. And now the entire world has been ushered into geopolitical Wild West. Extremely serious situation that when you look at the landscape. American president has the right to protect his national interests. He has been elected for that. And for him, the world is only Western Hemisphere. For us, the world is not only Western Hemisphere. So therefore, I think the message is very clear. You may be small, you may be powerful, you may be large and all that, but look after your interests, strengthen your economy, strengthen your military forces, and work on your economic immunity. That's the message. So we are now in a very different kind of world. And my own sense is what has started now, after what happened in Caracas, we are in a very, very different world. And he has done it. How can you stop other countries, especially the countries bigger militarily or bigger economically? Smaller countries, weaker countries, but possessing natural resources, they can't sleep now. They're having steep interest rates.
Could it force
Venezuela
India?
had it
Could
just tell
could
it,
it?
had it not been for oil, President Trump wouldn't have really given even a glance, even had not looked at Venezuela at all.
Well, let's go into that point because I think it is important. The reason why he removed the sitting president of Venezuela, is it because of the oil, or is it because he is looking to remove China's influence in the Western Hemisphere, and he's looking to take back, if you like, South America, Latin America to the Monroe Doctrine of influence, where in previous centuries they kicked out the European powers. Now they're looking to kick out China and Russia. Your thoughts on that, and what are they willing to give up? Are they willing to give Asia to China?
Well, the first thing is that, my own sense is that is all about oil. He has done it for oil because Venezuela.
He's not short of oil.
Well, they are at the same time. The question, they are because they are also the second largest importer of crude oil. The United States is the second largest. And if they really wants to go for make America great again, what is make America great again? Bring manufacturing back.
Well, the irony, of course, when you go down the oil path, America, the U.S., Washington, were blocking themselves from going into Venezuela. Venezuela wasn't blocking the American companies coming in. There was the Americans themselves that were sanctioning Venezuela and blocking their own companies from going into Venezuela. So that way it was a bit of this, a bit of that. But speak to the hemispheric one, where the U.S. President Trump is to meet Xi Jinping apparently in 2 summits this year, one in the spring and one in China and one in the fall in the U.S. or something like that. Is this going to be the summit where they split the world? You take the Western Hemisphere, we're taking the Eastern Hemisphere, including Taiwan.
China is not there yet. China is not the United States. They may be very strong economically, but they are not that strong militarily. So I think, moreover, China has got its own worldview. They don't want to fight. Have you seen China getting
that's my
into
point.
any
They're not going to
serious
fight.
engagement?
They're going to agree, like a Stalin and a Roosevelt, a Stalin and a Churchill. Split the world. You have that piece, I'll have that piece.
No, I think the United States wants oil, Venezuelan oil. Also, you are absolutely right, and that's my analysis too. They want to basically curtail, China's growing interest in Latin America. Because they look at Latin America as their backyard. They say, stay away from my backyard. But at the same time, is President Trump ready to give up, let's say, Indo-Pacific, the entire that region, and hand it over to China? Answer is no. No, Japan is there.
This guy is doing some
unexpected
unexpected stuff. I mean, it seems to me, if you take away the week, the day after, the sort of the hangover from removing, sending forces in to remove the sitting president of Venezuela and the Western Hemisphere, one has to, I certainly think we're looking at a world where Trump could give up Taiwan to China if they gave up Latin America.
No, it's a very simplistic way of looking at geopolitics. Asia is not Latin America. You've got Japan, a major power. You've got, Australia, significant power. You've got Indonesia. You've got India. We're never going to accept it. Then you have got Russia. Do you think Russia will accept it? No. You see, the question is that, it's a very, very different part of the world.
So in what way then is this significant? You're the one who said this moment in Venezuela was a very significant moment. How is that going to change 2026? What will be different about the year ahead after Venezuela than before?
Yeah. The main thing is that, post Venezuela, we are now into a world where international law doesn't exist. United Nations is powerless. All the international protocols and the kind of, all are thrown out of the window. And as far as the, diplomacy and diplomatic decorum, right language, respecting sovereignty of other nations, all that has been thrown out of the window. So we are now in a very, very different world where countries, those who still believe in these things, the United Nations, international, they really got to kind of engage with each other and say, now, how do we deal with it? How do we handle now this situation? I'm pretty confident majority of Americans are not like that. They are not. They believe in international law. And majority of countries on the planet believe in international law.
Do you think this will take India off its non-aligned pedestal and maybe give the BRICS a real moment of arrival in 2026?
No, it's a very different world. When President Trump talked about Western Hemisphere, Brazil is there. Brazil is BRICS. Argentina is there. The question is that I think we are now in a kind of situation where we need to strengthen such organizations like BRICS and SC and all that. But at the same time, looking at India's size, look at the size of India's economy, looking at India's ambitions, kind of roadmap we have built for ourselves, let's say. So it's important for us to protect our interests and to build our own sphere of influence.
Maybe
we are not going to follow A and B.
Take back Bangladesh and Pakistan. I mean, Sri Lanka, put them all in your box. I'm only joking. But we have 1 minute left, and I want you to give me your prediction for this year. You mentioned 7+% growth for GDP. You mentioned not a figure. I want to get a number out of you. How much oil do you think India buys off Russia this year? 1, 2, 3 million barrels a day?
Well, very difficult to say. It depends how trade talks go and what is the final outcome of the trade negotiation between India and the US. That's important.
Do you think there'll be a deal between the US and Russia and Ukraine in 2026?
Well, there would be a deal, but that does mean that there would be kind of deal which would be acceptable or build kind of permanent peace in Ukraine. I think it's important that Europeans are listened to. It's important Russia listen to, America listen to. Otherwise, Ukraine has potential still, even today. Things could go wrong. It could basically become like Afghanistan of Europe. So I think it's too early to say. But my own sense is that the war may come to a halt, but that does mean that peace will return to Europe or to Ukraine.
And what about OPEC Plus finalize on that? OPEC Plus policy for 2026, they're suspending increases in the first quarter, production supply quota increases. What's your expectation for the rest of the year?
Well, my expectation number two, that number one, the Western Hemisphere, you are going to see a new oil bloc, not former like OPEC, but there will be a new oil bloc, very powerful one led by the United States, which is going to give tough time and challenge to OPEC in terms of all that OPEC is known to do or OPEC wants to do. We are seeing a new international world order where OPEC will continue to be very important, but the US-led Western Hemisphere that will be a very, very powerful force. It may take some time to build, but it's going to be there. So therefore, the entire landscape of oil, the way we have known oil, let's say the last 20 years, is going to change completely. And it's going to and Brazil may not be a very enthusiastic partner of it, but Brazil somewhere would also see benefit. It's a good idea to have a new bloc coming out of Washington, D.C., coming out of Western Hemisphere, and challenging OPEC.
De facto, Venezuela is no longer in OPEC. Is that what you're saying?
Venezuela will be out of OPEC very soon. And Venezuela is going to be number 2 country in terms of, importance of oil for the United States of America. There will be some kind of, in coming few weeks and months, we are going to see some turmoil, some violence in Venezuela, but I think things will stabilize. And Venezuelan oil will start flowing into the global supply system in large volumes within the next 2 or 2.5 years.
Well, we're going to have to wrap it up there. We could talk all day, of course, with this incredible gentleman, Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert, giving us his vision for 2026. Narendra, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.